Welcome to Bridging the Gap, or Burning Bridges, or Building Bridges, whatever you want to call it. So, are we ready to watch a video now?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, ready. Video commence.
So, thank you all for being here on such short notice. We had some new news about the product come in, and I wanted to gather you all together. Layla, actually, could you turn your camera on, please? I wanted to bring you in on this.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just one sec. Hi.
Layla, are you still in your jammies?
I'm sorry, but it's like 3:30 in the morning. So I'm really sorry. I didn't have, I didn't have time to get dressed. I'm sorry.
So, I brought you here because I want to talk to you all about the work that Ed did on the UI. Did you all see what he did?
Yeah. I did all the back-end code for that. Like I did all the API work.
Right. I mean, you made an API call, right? But like, did you see what Ed did to like the forms? Amazing. So beautiful. But Layla, do you want to go ahead and pitch your idea? I know you were talking to me about it yesterday, your time. You had briefly mentioned that you had one, so I thought maybe you could present it today.
Yeah, so I thought we could change the way that we architected the
Oh my
APIs.
gosh, I just had the best idea ever. I was staring at the UI that Ed did, and I was thinking, instead of us having it flow directly from the form A to the product form, we could bring in another like splash screen type thing, and we could add super animations, maybe some like, I've seen like animated glitter. I bet he could do that. Okay, let's do it.
So, does that feel a little bit familiar to anyone? Yeah?
I sure hope not. Good God.
There are a few gaps in that kind of thing. I mean, we had senior director making calls in the middle of the night. I mean, that is a kind of a bit of a time zone gap. I'm quite jet lagged right now, so I'm feeling quite a gap in time, space-time continuum right now. But
even understanding of like work being done on a product, that kind of gap, you know, from, oh yeah, you did an API call, right?
Yeah, just an API call.
To, you know, being overexcited about something that was like, he built a form, right? So yeah, I think there was even, I'm trying to think if there was one other gap I wanted to highlight from that was, I mean, definitely an empathy gap as like.
Yeah, I think the empathy gap
it was
quite large.
The last minute calling you out on an idea. Because there's quite a few people who, you know, can't in the moment articulate on an idea. They need a moment to think, to process, and
definitely. And asking me to switch my camera on.
Yeah.
When I'm in my PJs in the middle of the night and trying to be quiet because other people in the house might be sleeping. But you're probably, well, you may know who we are, but I think we'll just fill you in case you're unfamiliar. Alyssa, go. Who are you?
That's me. Right there. Alyssa Nicoll on Twitter. Angular GDE, DevReach Progress, MC at NGConf now, and all around cheese lover, I guess. We'll put that one in there too.
Cheese, okay.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm on keto, so I can't get away without the cheese. So okay.
Cheese. Everything's cheese. I'm Layla. I am a .NET developer advocate at VMware Tanzu. I'm a Microsoft MVP, GitHub star. I live in the UK. So a very long way from you, all the way in Oklahoma.
Tulsa.
Yeah. So we have quite a lot of gaps, and we discovered a lot of those whilst building this talk.
It was so interesting, you know, like having, because you had this idea, and I was like, let's do it, let's build it together. And then whilst we were even fleshing it out, I was like, you work like that? And she was like, yeah, how do you work? So it was really fun.
There were a lot of sort of meshing process as we built this talk. So it sort of informed, as we built the talk, it informed our idea as we went along, which was really cool. So what we we sort of discovered where these 6 gaps, these are not the only gaps you will experience. We'll want to hear the gaps that you experience in your life. You can tell us at the end if you're not rushing to get to lunch, elbowing people out the way. So we're going to go through all of these. There's 5 gaps. Sorry.
Are there? Wait a minute.
Count.
Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 6.
Yeah, but that's a summary.
Oh.
Yeah. See? Okay.
0 index.
So I think, shall we kick off our first gap? Personality gap.
Is this one me? Is this me?
This is you.
This is me.
You.
Okay. Oh.
We'll just switch.
Thanks, love. Thanks. Okay. So yes, as she mentioned, as we were creating this talk, there were quite a few things that even popped up last minute, and things like idea creation and brainstorming, which are not standalone features to being speakers, but whenever you're developing, you're designing, you're working on automating things. It was really, really interesting to see the different ways our brains worked things out, or even learning or teaching visually or like audibly. Like it's been really interesting to see those gaps. And so let me see about this guy. Yeah, this one is you.
I
Yeah.
say we're normally giving this with our computers in front of us.
I know.
so-
I've never done it live with you. It's exciting.
fine,
It's exciting.
fine. So I think even from the way that when I create decks, I'm straight in there. Alyssa's like writing an essay.
Oh
and
well, because
document.
she was like, we made an outline of like abstract, like 4 sentences, and she was okay. Let's start on slides, and I was like, slides? So we have to write the talk first. She was like, yeah, in the slides. And so I went and I opened up one of my docs. I essentially write a book.
It's a book.
A book
It's pages
for
and
each talk. And then,
pages.
once you look at that book, you're like, now we can open Keynote. And she was like, are you nuts? So it was
Google Slides, not Keynote. I mean,
I was like, but how do you get your ideas out? And she was like, on the slides. So no, this chick, he wanted to point out her
Alyssa's
face.
Okay. So how many of you have either been this woman with this face, like, what is this person talking about? Or been trying to explain something and looking at someone who's making that face at you? Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of hands that you've either been that person or that person, okay?
Or I don't think you can be both in one sentence,
Well, you can.
like sitting
you,
though.
You,
like-
you could. So I guess, this is trying to read people's expressions. When you start seeing people and they're making that face at you, you should probably think, hang on. Are they really like on the same page as me, And I think
recognition, because there are so many gaps that we talked about and that we're going to talk about. And I think it all starts with recognizing and being empathetic towards that person
That's
on
it.
your team, in your, relationships outside of work. Recognizing that gap is so vital because, otherwise you're just kind of obliviously aloof and
wander on.
yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to try and relay is how to recognize these situations. And we may not know how to recognize them, or you may give us more ideas. So when you think about personalities, and we're very different personalities, how do you start bridging the gaps? I'm an introvert. You may think, how is that person standing up there an introvert? I'm very introverted because this is sucking the energy out of me, okay? I will need to go and lie down for several hours over there. I do not like to be put on the spot. If I'm in a meeting and someone comes to me and says, Layla, what do you think about this? I'm like, you told me 30 seconds ago. How can I possibly have formed an opinion?
Whereas like I'm an introvert as well, but meaning I don't get energy from this, it takes away. And yes, I have met people who would be like, I'm exhausted, let's go out dancing. And I'm like, yeah, that'll give me some energy. I have met those people. So the extroverts do exist. But I think, when Layla's talking about on the fly, I can't do that. That's really the only way I process. So if, someone has an idea, I'm like, yeah, let's do it right now. And so learning this about Layla and other people, But giving time, giving space, having smaller breakouts so that all voices can be heard, because it's not, for me, it's insanely easy to speak up for myself, but I think that's not the case for everyone.
No, and I've been in meetings where it's either been me or someone on my team who just looks really uncomfortable. I hate being put on the spot. I hate it. I hate questions at the end of these sessions, because I'm like, someone's going to ask me something and I'm going to have to think right then and speak, and that's not comfortable for me. So I think understanding that some people, like Alyssa, can just be like, yes, here's my answer, here's my opinion, here's my thought, and other people are like, well, I'm still processing all of this. So
I actually think I had a teammate who, when they did like a personality quiz together as a team, they found this out about one of the people, and they realized that some aggravation and some friction on the team was being caused because in the moment, this person would be like, yeah, sure, let's do that thing. And then later, like when they had time to process, they would always come back with like okay, well, really, we should do it this way. And there was so much frustration because they're like, you just said live in person this one thing. And so I think once they learned that about the personalities on their team, it was easier for them to be like, we're not going to make a decision right now.
Yeah.
We're all going to go think about this, and then we'll get back to each other. So.
And there are other ways that you can help people who may be having this problem. Defined agendas. Okay, I am at the point in my career where I'm like, if there isn't an agenda on that meeting, guess what? Decline. I'm not going.
so bad at this. I'm like, we're going to talk, and like I like send it, and people. So yeah, there's so many things that I've personally taken away from this that I strive to achieve better. So
yeah, so think about that. Unless you've already said, okay, we're going to have a meeting to discuss this, like I do that on Slack, I'm like, I'm going to throw something in the calendar, then I don't bother with an agenda. If there's like my entire team, there will be a link to the Google Doc, or there'll be something in the invite to let them know what we're going to talk about. Even if they don't read it, I put it in. And it's really important for me, if I get a random meeting coming in, that it has an agenda, so I know what it's going to be about. And it's not like, right, we're firing you all. Like, you know, that's kind of a fear that I have. Random meeting pops up. Is that it? Are we all out? So it gets rid of some anxiety. Time.
Yeah, we touched on this one as far as like giving time to do follow-ups and recording meetings for those who are perhaps culturally or like worldwide just not on the same time zone.
Well, this is it. I work on a globally distributed team, and like sometimes they meet and I'm in bed and I don't want to have to do what we did in that Zoom call at the beginning up in the middle of the night in my PJs. So recording things, rolling times as well. So if you are on a global team, change the timings of regular meetings to get different people in. I mean, a lot of companies since COVID are much better at doing that now because everyone's been working from home. There's less dependency on an office and things like that. So, and this is the big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think this one's we're gonna come back to it quite often, but just recognition is most of the battle, I think, because if you are just blundering on, as you put it, there's no room for improvement there. So I think being critical of yourself and your team and places you could do better, it's always a good place to start.
Absolutely. Just think about everything analytically and go through it. So I think that leads us nicely onto the knowledge gap.
I'm actually really proud of us with how many gaps we fit into that video. I was like, yep.
Yep, tick, 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 tick. I nearly went boom then. Is that aging me? Tick, 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 boom. Okay. See, I've got energy again now. I had my power stasis moment there. So we have some common gaps in knowledge. Stat gap, JavaScript, C#. So there we go. There's a lot of gaps between us two. You're right in you say what, front end of the front of the
front of the front end, yeah. That's where I live comfortably, yeah.
I'm like over here.
So someone comes to me and they're like, I need you to build a pixel perfect replication of this color picker.
Kill me now.
I'm like, I'm all over that. That sounds exciting and fun. And I love, Angular and JavaScript and very front end things. I'm learning .NET and the back of the back end, as I like to think of it. But
I'm in the processes, the systems. I'm having to do, my team is all about distributed systems, so I've been learning how to do all of that. APIs, like messaging, everything that you have to do in the very back magic server stuff to make everything that, makes your stuff happen, you see? Senior versus junior. Knowledge gaps. That's like the epitome of a knowledge gap, I think, is that, you've got someone senior who forgets what it's like to not know those things. So I think that's quite a thing. And then just the personal gap. If you think, I'd really like that promotion, but maybe there's a career ladder in your company and you're like, well, actually, I don't know how to do these things. I'm not, leading on a project or something, or I'm not learning architecture. So you've got those personal gaps for your own personal improvement.
I've started doing something.
What's that?
And I think it really helps with across these. And I would encourage everyone to my work and Google, and then a personal program of mentorship. So I actually am mentoring people in all of these places. And it is a big commitment because I'm taking on so many different mentees, but it has illuminated so many different gaps that I didn't even know existed, and been able to do these one-on-one sessions and help people work through different issues they're having, or move careers, or start being more in the community, whatever the thing is. So I think, I don't know, that's just a little tip of if you see a mentorship program, I would highly recommend just dabbling in it on either side as a mentee or mentor, because
or both.
Oh, why not both? Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, again, it comes back to recognizing the gap. And Alyssa, why don't you tell me about this?
Okay, Layla, so I did some code, right? And I'm really, really proud and excited. Can you check it out? I'm super excited. My var name here, and then I'm formatting the string over there, and then look, it writes it.
Really?
It's actually really cool.
If you're into C#, this is a really old, crappy way of doing it. Alyssa, come on. Don't you know there's this really cool new way? Why don't you know this? This is how you should do it, string interpolation. So much better. Do it this way. Look, I'm on 2 lines, you are on 3. Come on.
You gotta love it. When the developer points out the line numbers, you gotta.
2 lines, I'm so much better than you. So, how does that make you feel?
I gotta be honest. Every time you do this to me, because we've done it a couple times, my mind kind of goes fuzzy. I'm smiling and nodding, but nothing else is being processed when someone talks to me like that. And it does happen throughout my career. It's happened quite a few times, often. And I don't compute. I'm just kind of frozen in that moment. So there was no learning.
We're role playing here, and it stresses Alyssa out that I speak to her like that. Imagine if this is your job, and someone speaks to you like that, or you speak to someone like that, not thinking there's those assumptions oh, well, why don't you know how to do it that way? Or someone, just assumes that I know how to do CSS grid. Why? Why would I know how to do that? I'm well in the back of Bootstrap somewhere, doing that kind of thing with columns. And, I don't come and get into the modern way of doing stuff. So I think it's about assumptions, isn't it? And people have different areas of knowledge. I don't assume to know everything about the front end, and you don't assume to know it all. And it again comes to empathy. Should we try it again?
Yeah, let's do it again. So
Okay.
Layla, I have this really cool code, and I'm look at my name, and then I'm formatting the string, and then it actually prints it out. Isn't that cool? Right?
Well, you know that you're quite into JavaScript. Shall I show you something that's kind of familiar to you?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Look, does that not look a little bit similar to what you do in JavaScript?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we moved that $sign and stuck it here, would that not
Even
be quite familiar?
combines two of our, I like it.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? So
Nice.
you can do it that way, perfectly fine what you did with your way, but you
Yeah.
could do it this way as well, just FYI.
I think it's all about approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's really just the empathy towards other humans, right? How you're communicating with them, and I think it can either really make or break the team that you're on. So
Yeah. So, I'm sure that no one's really spoken to someone like that. Maybe you have, but maybe pointing it out.
sometimes you're having a really bad day, right?
And that's okay.
And you're like, listen, idiot, just write it like this, and then you move on with your life. I've been there, but I think that momentary pause before talking mouth words is important.
Filters. You may be thinking this in your head like, oh my giddy aunt, what? But then you just paste on that smile and think, how can I turn this into an empathetic teaching moment? And just, how can I make it relatable to someone? So think about that. So
Yes.
I think this is a good point.
So
Does it need to be bridged?
Oh, I know, because once a gap is recognized, I do think you have to ask yourself that of, do I need to bridge this gap and bring this subject closer together? Because not every backend developer needs to know how to work a CSS grid and the intricacies, right? Like, they don't need you blathering on at lunch about, blah, blah, blah. Like, you really should be conscious of someone else's interest and their need for that interest, whether or not it's code related, so.
Yeah, and the areas of expertise for each person. Why do we all need to know the same thing? That's why you have expertise in an area to share it. So, but how can we improve this? Pair programming. I'm a big fan of pair programming. That's why I live stream.
It's so funny because that's one that stresses me out. Because you're like, oh, like Q&A, let's not. And I'm like, please don't watch me code.
Sorry.
Please don't
You're
watch
on
me.
Twitch
Oh,
all
I know.
the time.
The first time my boss was like, it's so weird calling her that because she's such a mentor to me. Like my friend, my girl, I don't know. Anyways, she was like, I think we should start a Twitch channel and you should live code on it. Like maybe daily, maybe weekly. And I looked at her and I was like, I think you're insane. It was, the beginning of the pandemic. These things weren't happening. And as DevRels, to make community happen was a new challenge. And so I said, yeah, sure, why not, with an extreme amount of anxiety. I'm kidding you, not kidding you. It probably took about 6 months of me regularly getting on stream and opening up code because there's this thing in me that's like, I don't know everything about Angular and they're gonna find out. Like they're gonna ask me to do something and I'm just gonna freeze. And even if I know how to do that thing in Angular, it's like it's the blankness I was talking about when I'm like, deer in headlights. So it's definitely funny that you're like pair programming because I'm like,
But I was like that when I first started live coding on Twitch. I started in 2019. And I used to get this sweat on. I'd be at home, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go live. No, I'm not. I think I might need to go to the bathroom again. There was all that, I nicknamed it the anxiety. It's like, anxiety. I need to go to the loo again. And it'd be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go live. No,
I think I might have that. I didn't, it's a real thing, the anxiety.
The palpitations going on. And I was just like, okay. But now I get mob programming and I'm on there and I'm like, I don't know, I don't remember. My thing is I do not remember ever how to serialize and deserialize JSON. Every time. I have to do it every
You can't do that off the top of your head.
No, I have to Google it. I've written it down in books.
But I mean, it is valuable. Either pair program, like
I
privately.
thought you meant knowing how to deserialize and serialize JSON.
No. The pairing part. Because whether you're doing it live on stream, like we'll do together, or whether you're doing it privately, much preferred. There's so many nuances that you learn about how someone is just not only like what they're using and syntax wise, but like how they're logically piecing things together. So it is really valuable, and I think definitely will help bridge some of these gaps that need to be bridged.
It really helped me when I was learning to do test-driven development. I had a block with that. I sat down with another senior developer, and he just wrote the process, and I was like, I get it now because I'm sat with you. I see how you do it. And I could do it then. I could parrot it, and that made it click for me. So self-study is something that we all, as developers, have to do. We have to keep learning. Sadly, it's never over. Learning is never done. And then that humility, just recognizing in yourself that you have a deficit somewhere or something, and then just being able to acknowledge that, not chastise yourself, be kind, think, yeah, I need to learn that. It's okay, I'm gonna start learning it, and not be, oh my God, I don't know it, and having that fear that you had where you don't know everything.
And I think, it's easy to be like having that humility, working through that fear. But I think a lot of the times, at least the only way for me, was just to like force myself into those situations until I was numb to it. And I think that sounds horrible, but if you're struggling with that personally in your career, that's the way that I got through it, was just time and time again. So.
But if someone is experiencing that in your team, the biggest thing for me was when I was in an environment where it was okay to fail, where I was like, I don't know how to do this. I've tried it and it's gone kaboom. Not in production, but you know,
You haven't done it? I've done rollbacks, man.
So in one of my, I think it was my third engineering role, they had a dunce hat. I kid you not. They had a white piece of paper made into a cone.
Was this like if you had like a production error, you had to wear it?
If you broke the build server. And it had a big old red D drawn on the front. And
Shut up.
I owned that. And then we had juniors. I came in as a senior developer there, and I broke that build server left, right, and center, okay? And that was fine. And we had these juniors come in, and they would break it. And I would purposefully go and break the build after they broke it to get that dunce thing off their desk and back onto mine, because I didn't want them to have the like,
oh my gosh, what an environment.
It was really stressful.
Wow.
And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to have that dunce hat and I'm going to keep it off those juniors' desks. We had graduates in there, and I thought, I don't want them to experience this as their first engineering role. So create a safe place to fail. Don't have a dunce hat. Okay.
I see some people like messing. We got to get rid of that hat. We really got to stop doing that, Bob. It's not good.
So just be respectful and mindful, and that people learn in different ways. That's what we learn, is that, you like to listen to stuff, and I'm like, I can't listen to stuff.
Audible, man. I think
Reading.
I have hundreds of books on Audible, and I can like, be doing the dishes and like learning about like task management at the same time.
No.
But like, if you give me a book, I am just like, and then I'm like, okay, I can't reread this paragraph any more times. So something that I have come across, there are certain people who I love to stream with. And one of the big reasons I love to stream and live code with these people is because when I ask, because as Alyssa does, I rabbit hole around. And I'm like,
never.
I'm being shown this new exciting code that I've never seen before, and I'm like, we're gonna have to talk about that piece, and then what is that you're doing over there? And so oftentimes I've noticed with certain people that I will bring on stream with me, mostly male, they, when I ask questions, if they don't know the answer, they will say something like, we'll talk about that later, or but look over here, or
let's not go into that right now.
Let's not go into that right now. And I always thought, it took me I'm talking years to figure this out. I always thought they were just frustrated with my ADHD. I'm most of the time not medicated. It's a real big struggle for me to focus. And so I just perceived it through my lenses as, oh my God, Alyssa, focus, right? And I started realizing, once streaming with you honestly brought this to my attention, there'd be times you'd be like, I don't know. And I'd be like, you don't know the answer to that question? And you'd be like, no. And I'd be like, oh. And I started realizing it was like coping mechanisms for different people on stream because they couldn't say these 3 words. And I think it's so important to be able to say these 3 words, because not only like, yes, it's humility on your part, but it's allowing that safe place we were talking about, because you're being transparent and you're allowing a place where you don't have to know the index of everything, right? Like, and so I just wanted to bring that one in because it took me a long time to figure out that people were doing this to me. They were avoiding these 3 words, so.
Well, I think that brings us on to one that you can speak to. I'm only a dog mum. I only have dogs. You actually have a small human, don't you?
I do. I used to be a dog mom for a long time, still am.
Yeah.
I got 2 pups at home. One looks like this, and then one is actual pup-shaped. And this whole I don't know topic really brought to mind my son, Mr. Milks, because it seems ingrained, like from the moment he could talk, like at the time he was 2, now he just turned 3, and he still had that issue when I would ask him something. he would struggle with, like, he would either make it up or he would just, kind of quietly get shy. And I was like, I'm trying to teach him, it's okay to say, I don't know, right? Like, his new favorite thing is, you tell me. I'd be like, which one's red? You tell me. And I'm like, yes, I know the answer, but, come on, we're trying to work on something here. So I thought it was really, really interesting how it does seem ingrained in us as humans to avoid the acknowledgement of lack. And it's, I don't know, something that I think I even do. So
I flipped it for you.
Thank
I could
you.
see you going for that arrow.
Yeah, this is another difference. Layla loves the clicker, and she loves the lav and mic.
Lav mics, yeah.
And I was actually told by a speaking coach years back to get rid of my clicker because it gave me too much freedom on stage. And she said, you're all over the place, you're too distracting, you need to root yourself. And so it's just funny learning all these little differences about people. You might not realize someone's doing something intentionally, right? Like, yeah, I'm reaching for a keyboard, but it's on purpose. So
Yeah,
I think,
yeah. I could see you going, and I was like,
Yeah.
But I think this is what
I
we
don't know.
discovered was it's that vulnerableness, or people don't want to feel vulnerable. At my very first DevRel job, they really, really forced us to be vulnerable. My very first day, I had to do a 5-minute presentation on when I was 10, okay? Everyone else had to do this, and they called them icebreakers. And it was about us being vulnerable. We had, like, the guys sobbing on the tables.
I'm
It was
super
like,
confused. When I was 10?
that was the topic of it. I had to do when I was 10.
How do you make someone cry with a when I was 10 story?
Oh, no, that
What?
that wasn't me making people cry. It was like I had a pig-faced birthday cake, yay, things like that. But other people were telling their stories and they're tearing up. I'm like, this is my first day. What is going on? What is this company I've joined? But they were really pushing us to be okay with being vulnerable. And this all comes back to that safe place. And you can start from little kids, making them feel that it's okay to be vulnerable. But we don't like it. If you feel vulnerable, it's probably because you think, someone's going to find out that I'm a fraud.
I'm a fraud and then I'll get fired.
Exactly. I'm going to get fired because that imposter syndrome. If you want to talk about imposter syndrome, Luce does a stream on it and talks about that. So it's like, I don't want people to think that I shouldn't be here. And it's really hard to get past that. So you have to own it. You have to keep being vulnerable to get into it. So it's always about creating that safe space and keeping to just talk about those vulnerabilities.
So this one goes
yeah.
back to the Mr. Milks. How many of you have experience working from home within the last 3 years? How many of you were doing it, like, leave your hands up if you were doing it before the pandemic? Okay. Oh, wow. You, like, flip-flopped. You're no longer doing it during the pandemic.
Like, right before, 3 months before
Yeah.
the pandemic,
Yeah.
I started a job that was working
That
from
was-
home. It was my first work from home gig. I'm like, well, this is going to be cool. And then everybody was working from home.
You're like, no longer unique.
This is gonna be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I've been doing work from home for, I think, almost 7 years now. And with my severe ADHD, would never go back just because I don't know if you guys know about the pop by, They're like, you're at your desk and you're coding and I'm walking by and then I just thought of this thing, and it's headphones are on, it doesn't matter, right? And so that just crushed my productivity and ability to focus. And so once I found this way to have, because I work in silence.
Me too.
You do? Oh my God!
Music, I cannot work with music. I have to be silent.
Do you all have music or do you work? You have music? Silent. Okay,
Silent.
yeah. Brown noise occasionally. That one. I think Luce got me onto that one.
Brown noise? You mean white noise?
No. Am I taking credit for? Well, I'm just
I thought brown noise
attributing
was
it to you.
something completely different.
It's there are different shades of noise. There's white noise, pink noise, brown noise. It's like a different wave.
I'm really confused now by something I saw on Mythbusters once about brown noise.
What? Okay, we'll talk
I will talk
after.
about
We'll
that
talk after.
later.
Anyways, so work from home. I loved it. And then I had a little one, and I don't know if you've experienced, like, as a work from home parent, schools like suddenly moving to virtual, or daycare closed for a holiday, yeah, right? Like, or even things like your babysitter fell through. And I just constantly was on alert of like, how am I gonna do both, right? Like, he's 2, now he's 3. What, like, he's not gonna be like, now you play nicely while I go write some code, right? And so this was definitely a huge gap that I recognized, I kind of think, underneath the umbrella wing. And I really feel like having a good relationship with your boss and with your team, and being able to be open about it. My husband also works from home. We share an office, absolutely love it. He helps me debug my code, wouldn't have it any other way. But he was asking his boss one day, how do you do it? You have kids. How do you do it? Like, they're not all the time taken care of. Sometimes they're here with us. And his boss, I'll never forget, because my husband hates headphones, so I could hear the conversation. He said, accepting that today isn't going to be a normal day. It's not going to be a normal work day. You're not going to get all those tickets closed, right? And that's okay. And that was so freeing for my husband and for me, just knowing that, like, our team was on board. They understood we had other things going on, and it wasn't going to be a normal day. So I love this idea, and I hope that you yourself, if not your team, can adopt that attitude, because it's hard. Being work from home is hard, and then you add children on top of that. It's not easy. So.
Yeah. So this brings us to another one, leadership gap. And this is something I feel quite strongly about. We're talking about bridging gaps, but sometimes a gap is good, okay? And you want to broaden that gap.
Whenever Layla first talked to me about this, I was like, what are you talking about? So I think you'll have to share the story, because I was really, I'm like, no, gaps need to be closed, man. We got to bridge them.
So you do want a good relationship with your boss. Like Sarah, my boss, Tasha, she's great, okay? But I have had a boss who, before I joined the company, I was friends with him. I knew him from the community and all of that. And so we were good friends. And then I went and worked for him. And what I didn't realize was that personable relationship that we had was actually quite damaging. He would assume things. He would start to micromanage me. He was much more, he gaslit me in the end.
Does everyone know what that means?
Yeah.
I literally just learned it whenever she was like teaching. I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. I'm going to need someone else to define that again.
And so with gaslighting, it's making you believe that things are your fault, or that they're not as they seem. And I think it was a lot because we were friends beforehand. He thought that he could be more candid with me and less professional. So it really is good to keep that professional barrier. And sometimes you don't want to go on those work drinks and make that, everyone's about, yay, let's all be team building. But sometimes you just want to be like, hang on, we're professional colleagues. And I think it's really important to know that you don't have to be friends with everyone. You don't even have to like people. You just need a good professional relationship. And with that working from home, it can sometimes feel like you don't work from home, you live at work, because those people are in there. You're thinking about, oh, well, what did they say? And I don't know if you're sitting in front of the TV at night and you're going, oh, well, I'm an overanalyzer. And I'm thinking about those conversations.
Do you want to know how I've stopped the overanalyzing? I might be developing another disorder, but I've stopped it. You want to know how? Oh, no, I wish. That'd be so much easier. No, I invented this Alyssa in my head, because there's multiple Alyssas in my head that argue with each other. And I invented this one that looks like me, but with venom face. And anytime I start overanalyzing a conversation, how that went, oh my God, did I just say that to him? Like, venom Alyssa comes out in my head and goes, stop! And it's like perfect, and it like shuts all of that down. So get a venom version of yourself in your head, and it was perfect, right? Okay, that's all. Did I just scare you? I scared her. It's okay. We'll talk.
I'm a little bit, concerned now.
You just got to shut it down. You can't let that, because like, you can get into these loops with like have you done that where you go over a conversation over and over?
Some gaps need to be bigger. Yeah, I'm gonna move away from the venom
The
face.
venom Alyssa. I need to get like a venom mask because you're perfect.
So I just want to say that we're talking about bridging these gaps, getting everything closer. Don't feel that has to apply to everything. You can keep those professional relationships. You don't have to, like, I have some colleagues who I'm like, yeah. I'm not going to say who, but I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go out and socialize with them. Thanks. But they're fine. I can work with them. And that's okay. You don't have to like everyone, and everyone doesn't have to like you. Okay? And then, is this our last one?
It is our last one, but we have 1.5 minutes.
Okay, well, we can do that. GeoGap. We live really far away from each other, but look, we've done this together. So there's lots of different things. Distance, time zones, cultures. Alyssa, are we going to talk about culture?
Are we talking about culture next? Oh.
This one.
Oh, right. Yeah, that is culture. Okay, so I have this picture of myself, and I think it was my GitHub picture for a while.
You love this picture.
Well, okay, I was showing off my ring, because I love that, and B, my nail polish. I loved that. And Layla was like, do you know what this means in the UK? And I said, I do not know what that means in the UK. It means peace and love, not war. And she goes, no, you're flipping people off.
All right, so no, when you're talking to someone from the UK, and Alyssa's always like, well, how do I remember which way? Do you wave like this or do you wave like this? You wave like this, don't you? So this is acceptable. Don't flip it the other way.
It was hard. It was really hard, yeah.
So now you're like, peace, love,
I attempt
victory.
to, yeah. But
sometimes you forget.
there's just so many things like that, little things. And I think having friends that can be like...
There's things in British language that I remember I came out of a hotel in Las Vegas, and in Vegas they smoke a lot. And I came out and I was like, oh my God, I stink of cigarette smoke, but I used a local colloquialism that we would use in the UK, and like the
Did
Americans,
people stare at you?
they were like,
That's so
"Layla,
brilliant. Oh my God.
and I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean that. I meant cigarettes. So, there's lots of things, just being aware of culture and different
and being able
language.
to share that with your friends and your teammates, I think is helpful.
Have. Yeah.
Something that you mention to me often, you always say, is just, I know your time zone, why can't you know mine? And I love that quote from her, and it really called me out personally, because...
I didn't mean it like that.
No, but it did, because I am completely clueless with others' time zones, and so I started to try to be able to do that math faster in my head and talk, because Layla always makes...
This is my brain.
Yeah, this is with the time zones. She always makes it a point to say...
Is this yours?
Oh yeah, this is what mine looks like. Like in their time zone. She's like, do you want to meet at 5 p.m. your time? And she'd always do that for me. And so I think, honestly, that common courtesy and that awareness of the cultural gap, the time zone gap, has made us work together really well.
Yeah. So, that's
I think we need to do a wrap. Are you ready?
All right, we're
we gotta get to
wrapping.
lunch. Yeah?
Wrap. Apologies.
You're
Apologies.
welcome. Yes.
This is just some stuff. We can share these slides. So there's some links here on. Every time zone is a great thing for if you're working in different time zones. There's some great meeting schedulers. See? Schedulers. You can do cultural research and just having empathy. That's both from someone making a cultural faux pas, don't jump down their throat, and also trying to make an effort to understand other people's cultures. So I think there's a lot to be there. So yeah, but this is the main thing you should remember.
I think awareness, empathy of these gaps, and a little bit of humility on yourself when you stumble across them. It's going to go a long way, and that was a lot to remember, so this is the takeaway. But yeah.
That's it.
Thank you both of you. Thank you both.